The reason why we called you, I think you already know that from the communication that we had with you. It's in respect of the disbursements made to you, right to your office, for service-wide vote between 2017 and 2021. Like it was indicated to us from the Nigerian's office, various sums were given to you during this period, the period that is under review. Why we brought you here is to come and confirm to us. Just like you know, you have been involved, in the deployment of our resources, when it comes to our operation. A lot of the money that we budget under service-wide votes, to a very large extent, the standing committees in the Senate are not aware of the disbursements and their use. It was out of our own quest to know, from the agency that are beneficiaries of disbursement from service-wide votes, that the office of the Akabueze and furnished us with the figures, and we have called them. First, let us ascertain that these figures that are being bandied by the office of the Akabueze are correct. And if due process was followed in obtaining, these funds, meaning, request is made, an approval is granted, and a due process of approval is followed. And again, when it comes to maybe capital expenditure, let us see whether procurement, and other external acts were followed. So this is why we are invited them. Particularly when it comes to capital expenditure, where we expect that government to be able to derive some revenue by way of taxes. We have found out so far that a lot of these agencies, when it comes to procurement, many of them did not do the exercises according to the, our extant acts, financial regulation. So it is good that you are here too, because there's nobody that is really too big for our law, and the office too was a recipient of some of these disbursements. We are going to confirm this figures with you. And if it is so, we are going to argue like we have asked others what the money was used for. Once we are just satisfied, until our discussion with you ends. So welcome. We will start with introduction on this side. Well, first, let me see DG budget. Even if we didn't have this problem, this issue to thrash out with you concerning service-wide votes, I had actually planned that the committee will invite you, to get certain clarifications, because you prepare the budget, of the federation, and at the same time, your wisdom, the issue of service-wide vote, you decided to put money in a basket and put somewhere to meet some exigencies or shortfalls both to the current and capital expenditure. That was the intention. And we have found out that over a period of almost 1 year, there was a progression of huge amounts of money coming from service-wide votes or going to service-wide votes. And for instance, from maybe when we're doing the appropriation for 2021 or so, we found that service-wide votes, put their total about 750 million, about that. But there was a progression from that amount of money to over 1.8 trillion. Where that really, is not as worrisome as, what you have observed here, that a lot of the NDAs now we are going, to the Ministry of Finance, asking, for intervention from service. And many of them, the sums that they were being given, maybe a report to show all of that, colossal sums of money. And this expenditure not captured when it comes to budget performance by MDAs, when they meet their standing committees. Nobody talks about it, of course, from service-wide votes. And what you have observed here, what is the request I want to put to you? I want you to inform this committee the procedure of application of request to approval. Who gives approval? Who is supposed to give approval? Within the context of our extant acts and financial regulation. Is it only the minister? Because there are even some. Unless we're going to get from cash management, they raised the AIs after approval. There's a certain approval to go to the president, getting the approval, mediating it through the office of the chief of staff. And there are some of them just, the supervising ministries. The minister just does it, and that is where it fades away. Even when the application, whether the requesting went to the minister or not, they get the money. So you are going to really help us, because to help us in our report that the order of request and approval that we are adhered to.
In addition to what the distinguished chairman has said, are there specific policy guidelines as to what are the kind of expenditure that should go service wide? Because sitting in this committee in the last few months we have started, virtually anything goes to service wide money. So it's like bypassing the regular budget, and then the money will come. And unfortunately, it's not oversight by any committee in the National Assembly, because the committee doesn't reflect. When you ask agencies to submit their budget performance, they don't include what they get from service-wide votes. And anything you can think of, even including buying vehicles and so on by agencies.
In one instance, a contractor was the one that
applied for service-wide votes.
So, I do agree that the PSC is right to be concerned if service-wide votes now appear to be looming large, because it's let me just say there's a basis to be concerned. But is there a policy framework guiding service-wide provisions? Yes. The sort of items that are put in the service-wide are: one, provisions that are non-MDA specific, that are cross-cutting, and there's no single MDA that has. If you look at the service-wide votes, in aggregate, the largest single item you'll find there will be pension and gratuity provisions, which cut across the entire service. So those are service-wide expenditures. So that's the principle, and which are then administered centrally from the Ministry of Finance. We also have items of expenditure that, even though they've been appropriated, there is a requirement for further budgetary scrutiny before the expenditures are actually incurred. When you look at even the Appropriation Act, going back years, you'll find that the service-wide provisions to be categorized when the summing up provisions as part of the budget office, because it was the budget office that had then that responsibility to superintend those cross-cutting missions, as well as then do the further budgetary scrutiny that was required for people to be able to access those funds. But in 2015, the administration created a Ministry for Budget and National Planning, and the budget office is taken from Ministry of Finance then to be part of this new ministry. The then Minister of Finance, because what happened was, despite that change, all of the regulations governing the management of federal government's finances, whether It's the Finance Control and Management Act 1958, Fiscal Responsibility Act, all of the circulars. No change was made. All of them still, the power to authorize all financial transactions still resided with the Minister of Finance, even though there was now a Minister of Budget and National Planning. And so the then Minister of Finance decided that if the Budget Office no longer reported to her, she could not rely on the work of the Budget Office to, give approvals, because only her signature was still, recognized. It was by the OATF or anybody, or the Central Bank or anybody, for release of funds. And so, in practice, the responsibility for oversighting the service-wide votes, they created a new department under Ministry of Finance called Cash Management Department, and transferred this responsibility to them. So since 2016, around mid-2016, the Budget Office ceased to have responsibility. Even the issuance of AIE, which was the responsibility of the Budget Office, even by the design of the chief minister, was also transferred to this department. As it means, I said, the Budget Office doesn't report to her. And that arrangement remains till today. So the Budget Office, beyond making the budgetary provisions, since 2016, we are not in a position to provide you any answers as to how people access funds from the service-wide votes, and what we are only in a position now to account for the funds that we ourselves, have accessed from the service-wide votes from there. But we still make the budgetary provision, and still based on those principles. The truth is, when you look at the service-wide votes today, there are only about 5 or 6 of those lines that are actually omnibus in design. All the others are actually use-specific. But whether or not in practice they apply to those specific uses, we cannot say. That's what the details will show. Which are the ones that are omnibus by design? There's something called the Public Service Wage Adjustment provision, which basically is an omnibus line that recognizes the fact that with the best of skill and effort in preparing the personnel cost budget, there will be exigencies that arise in the course of the year that will make that will make it necessary to resort to some contingency provision. Unfortunately, that provision has grown partly because of the large level of what, for want of a better word, we label illegal recruitment in the system. And somehow the same people who find themselves onto the payroll, and so towards the end of every year, you have many agencies declaring shortfall in their salaries because people who were not in contemplation when we made the personnel budget have been able to access the budget. And so if there was not done, the people will end up, and once that happens, everybody is shouting budget office, provision, whatever. So in response, we would rather that the illegal movements be curtailed, we have to then step up that provision. But beyond provision, even the access to it, we are not involved in. Since at mid-2016. The other line there that is by design omnibus. You have two lines called basically in practice they function as presidential contingency. There's a copy on the capital side and on the recurrent side. For especially security, issues where the president, may, need to approve for some intervention. Then you have for in Nigeria's, subscriptions and contributions to international organizations. The reality is that the country, through a not well-controlled process over the years, has subscribed to membership of far too many organizations, some of whose value to the country is doubtful.
Yes, so true.
And so if we were to try to provide for, payment of the country's obligations to all of these, entities, it will be a very significant provision. And that's money we can ill afford in our current fiscal situation. So what we do is make those omnibus provisions there and leave it to the minister, to then use discretion in the course of the year to determine the ones that represent priority that the country must, deal with. So then you have, other than these, everything else there is actually use specific. We have the other large item that you have in service-wide vote will be the provisions for the social investment programs of government. That belongs to the category of expenditures that ought to be subjected to further budgetary scrutiny at the point of disbursement, which is why they are put there rather than put under the ministry. Okay, but as I've said, we are not part of that process beyond making the budgetary provisions. The other large item you will find in service-wide vote will be the provision for military operations, which again, basically approval for the military to access those is given on a quarterly basis by the president, or where they have any specific special security operations. We have, over the last years, determined that it is also proper that if the military have such thing that they can resort to, given the spate of security challenges that spring up across the country, that a similar provision should be made for the police and the civil defense, who are also often called up with those interventions. So these are really, and then you have the presidential amnesty program for Niger Delta. These are the large get items that you will find in, but I said most of them are use specific. The pension provisions are all specific. The pension provisions represent probably the single largest source of growth in the service-wide vote, because what we've been hearing stories about pensioners, people who retire not getting paid time on. What has happened is, in 2004, the country adopted the contributory pension scheme, which still represents global best practice. And I'm glad that the legislature is pushing back on some of the efforts by people to basically erode the gains that we have made in that what has become our single most successful national savings. But there are people still in service, who their pension benefits will derive from the pre-2004 defined benefit scheme and the defined contribution scheme. So, and that will be the case until about 2039, when there will be nobody else. Beyond 2039, everybody will be fully on the contributory scheme. So, but what happened is when the country, adopted this, the ideal thing that should have happened was have an actuarial valuation to determine, to get a level estimate, because even the best of actuarial valuations will still be an estimate, but then it will be very scientific estimate of what the obligations those people will be. Because why I say so, because you still may have to make assumptions about life expectancy, how long they will live beyond retirement and all of that. But if you did that, then you will have a number, you know what your obligation is, and you start making provisions for it. But it wasn't done. And so, that portion of the provision that needs to be made to build up the funds for the pension redemption fund for those people retiring was not being adequately funded over the years. And over the last 5 years, we have decided to step up, even in the absence of an actuarial valuation, to step up the level of provisioning so that the gap can be narrowed. So that's one major source of growth in the service-wide vote. In terms of whether any committee of the National Assembly oversights the service-wide votes, the Appropriations Committee, actually, every year as part of the appropriation process, engage with the ministry, and on a line-by-line basis, we have to justify to them the provisions that are made for the service-wide vote.
Provisions of the actual spending.
No.
Provisions for budgeting.
Yeah, the budget.
The oversight we are talking is
the budget.
Post-expenditure oversight.
What? Normally, they will require us to submit a report of, the previous years, what was this thing, and then you defend the provision, the level of provision you're making for. I hear you that, any agencies that draw funds from there should include it in the report that they present to their committee. So that's something that it's up to NAS to require as a matter of routine. I'm sure if they do, then it would be a question of requiring the ministry to submit a schedule of all those who availed, and then the respective committees will then also ensure that there are people when they turn up. So up front, there are people who will be told that their submissions need to address what they received, and then they will have the independent report from the ministry to be able to compare.
Even the expenditures, they're not even audited.
Yes.
They don't go through audits.
Well, that would be surprising. I don't know what, because the funds that we, for instance, receive from the service-wide vote, it still follows the normal disbursement procedure, which includes the audit by even the pre-disbursement audit. So I don't know
which to happen in agencies now. We're talking about post-expenditure audits.
They don't go back. In
And
fact,
if you want to hear, for what you have described, we have agencies coming here. We are rents for agencies that have budget line. Their rents are paid for service wide.
receive from a landlord. That's the day we said. You pay so much to a landlord as your rent obligation. Where is the receipt that money was paid?
And this is not rent that is for 1 year, let's say it's off. It's something like every year. Those provisions are not made in their regular budget. they apply for service vehicles for such things. And there are several things that you see. And then again, there are issues that are made in the normal budget that are now paid out from service vehicles. That is the one I don't understand. Like for example, what you are calling the all this health sector for. When we did the supplementary budget, all the supplementary budget that was done during COVID, they were kind of paid from service vehicles. We don't know. And these are what is in the regular budget. Yesterday we had the environment, we've had even we had all the money that were paid for COVID.
Are we talking about COVID?
So are we COVID money?
COVID.
Huge
Billions.
Billions. And they are all issued out from service or charged to service vehicles.
Well, I do recall that in 2020, we look at the revised 2020 budget,
which was done
after with the onset of COVID.
Yes.
There was a COVID intervention fund.
500 billion.
500 billion. It was domiciled because again it was across. It was domiciled in service-wide vote, and there was a committee.
But in the budget we passed, it was domiciled in each of those agencies. Under the budget.
The COVID intervention fund was in the service-wide vote. If it was in the other end, it would have been a double count. It was a service-wide.
As a one line, it
was one line, but then there was a breakdown. Even in the budget there, there was a schedule that detailed what it was, which agencies, what projects it was, and that was part of the budget. That was the schedule to the budget that was passed.
Okay,
I want to say something.
Sorry, the ones giving out to the health institutions. Particularly the tertiary health, facilities, the university teaching hospitals, the federal medical centers, and all of that. Very well spent. For me, even as a pharmacist, I know that the health sector was taken care of. And every right-thinking person who's heading all these places, they will tell you, for the first time the intervention that was done by government, in that regard. And well, all of them who didn't have ICU before, many of them too didn't have molecular laboratory. All right, we could only talk about 2 or 3 of them in the whole country, but now virtually every health facility still have good development. That is really what we have been able to pick. So when those institutions come in here and they say, look, we use this one to buy PPE, we use this one for molecular lab, well, we are enthused by that. Yes, very well spent. But there are other institutions that were not related at all, that got billions of naira.
Not related to COVID at all.
Not related. You are asking a particular ministry, what is your business with COVID? What do you do with it?
How we are doing solar
That's 6 billion. That would have used to come to
Power said the use of the ask yesterday. Very sad. 6 billion as at now. What they said they do they are not functional.
Aviation.
They said they are waiting for commissioning 2-3 years after they have spent the money. 6 billion.
And the way we do these things, distinguished is chairman of the Committee on Health. Okay, I'm equally a member of that committee. You can say I chair public and he is a member. So we can always tie up these things to say this is one well utilized. This one is not, So that's why we bother to ask you, because when you make these provisions, we should have at the back of our mind that the proper objective will be set. Many of them who come in here is as if the money was dumped on them. And many of them did not even request for the money. We told them in a letter we wrote to them, put it in this order, arrange your submission to us that you requested, approval granted, confirm you got the money, what did you use the money for? Consultants.
Well, that would be surprising because by concept, you have to originate that request to access fund provision in the service-wide vote, which is why it's subjected to that. At that point, when you now you justify and provide adequate, that's what we conceptualize. That's how it is. But you're asking for questions specifically a period over which we have no responsibility.
Well, you know, listening to you giving background information on this budget office, vis-a-vis the Ministry of Finance, and then the farming out of such expenditures and moving them under the cash management office, under the Ministry of Finance, not under the budget. I want to ask, is there any law that's permitted this movement, this cash management office, that's
going to be Ministry of Finance.
True policy of the Minister of Finance or whoever, you know, is there any legal backing giving life, to this office? They're performing very, very important position in the financial administration of this country. Do you have anything like that?
Before you answer, please let me just add a foot to what you have just said. You know what you explained to us. I mean, I can put my finger, on what really is I consider, a misnomer. Cash management is under the office of the Minister of Finance. And I want to say that over 80-90% of all the approvals granted came from the Minister of Finance. 80-90% came from the Minister of Finance. Same cash management, not the Minister of Finance.
You are preempting my question.
So no, I just adding to what you are going to
just let you.
Why?
You are going
the budget office that made the provision. It's you that should have been accounting to say you made the provision to you. The approval, necessary approval came from maybe Mr. President.
You are too fast.
So
you are too fast for my liking.
No, you asked your question. So I just wanted you when you are answering
that will follow with your other questions.
Hold on. So when you are answering his question, I just want you to follow, for you to see, because you said budget scrutiny. And for all to really scrutinize the budget, you that made the provision. You should be able to know who gets, but you don't know who gets what from service provider. You don't know. But you made the provision. And it's the minister that approves. That's why we're asking. Does she have, or does the Minister of Finance have a limit? Because you approve the billions, you approve the thousands. No limits. Thank you.
You are watering down my question.
Said that also in government, departments within ministries, as long as the head of service between the ministry and the head of service, they agree that there's a need, a department can be created. That's what happens. The executive minister then, because he's the head of service that staffs the department. But having said that, it is even the budget office itself. There's no law establishing the budget office in Nigeria. No budget office of the Federation. The Fiscal Responsibility Act assigns responsibility to it. There's no enabling. The Nigerian budget office is the weakest budget office structurally that I know anywhere in the world. Any country where they have a budget office.
Okay.
It's simply not empowered by law to do what budget office is to do. It doesn't even have control over its staff. Like have any whatever about the quality of the staff or any whatever the people. So that's answer your question. And then in terms of whether or not there are limits, as far as I know, in terms of how much the minister can approve from as far as I know, there are no such defined limits in financial regulations. But between the Auditor General and the Accountant General, they are more versed with those financial regulations. They may be able to clarify whether there's a limit.
Okay, I want to ask you further.
Yes.
Now established, there's no law establishing cash management office. It's just something administratively, you
Yes.
arrived at it.
Yes.
I'm asking, is there, what's the rationale behind the same office that is overseeing it is also the same giving directives? Where is the checks and balances in the system to make sure that if one person approves, the other person oversights whether the process of getting that before it's paid for? So who is that justified?
Well, the reality is, even the budget office also reports to the Minister of Finance. So the DG budget office reports to the Minister of Finance. The cash management department, that's my understanding, and I assume that that's how it works, reports to a permanent secretary. Back then also, when the former Minister of Finance made that decision to create that department, it wasn't only, there were some of the functions that resided in the budget office, but because again, the budget office was not established by law. If the budget office was established by law and its functions defined by law, it will not be possible to use an administrative process to transfer the function that is assigned to the budget office to another department. But because that law, there's no law also, that made it to do so. So there was then also created a second permanent secretary position in Ministry of Finance called Permanent Secretary Special Duties. So to which the CMD reported. So, and then the PEMSEC reports to the Minister of Finance. So, presumably in government, because ministers are not accounting officers, permanent secretary, an accounting officer, the DG is an accounting officer. So the presumption, therefore, is that at the level of the accounting officers, the due diligence work and whatever, and all of the financial, controls ought to be exercised before endorsing to the minister for approval.
I think this point made is very critical and important
Yes.
because of our recommendation and report. So the 10th Assembly, probably before we are able to present that, it is critical in terms of looking at our financial system. Because what we have seen and what we are looking at so far, part of it is because of this administrative
I don't wait for the assembly. I'm bringing a bill to that effect.
Well,
That's why I'm asking all the questions.
I know that in the house they have I made this point earlier, but I didn't want this to seem like it had to do with me.
No,
I know. So that's why but I'm hoping that even the 9th Assembly because at the House of Reps that's the least that we owe the country. If we want to
I'm bringing a bill to that
fiscal
effect.
management framework for the country, we owe the country.
I want to ask the question to solve the problem.
Strong
That's why we're on this
budget
place here.
The last British Prime Minister, Theresa May, what essentially crashed that government was the fact that she prepared a mini budget without going through the budget office. And the guy said, we can't call it a mini budget without it passing through here. He blasted them, they made a U-turn, said it's no longer a budget, blah, blah, blah. But that shows the level of independence and the power that budgeting should have in any serious administration.
I mean, in most budget of most countries, even the process of projects entering the budget.
Yeah, of course.
You cannot have a project enter the budget where the budget office hasn't signed off on a cost benefit, your viability and analysis and whatever. Whatever.
Nonsense projects that don't relate to federal government functions.
I'm hoping that.
We are aware of that.
We are going
70 to 60 to 70% of those projects in that budget are useless.
They are useless.
Common person does not benefit from it.
And the,
Well,
pa-
just like we said,
and the costing and pricing are not based
we
on
have to have the enabling acts. Budget office,
and
office of auditor general,
those two offices.
nothing. Agencies, we have over several something agencies. Many of them, their accounts are audited. Right from inception.
At some, I think you've made the point, Chairman, severally about linking
Yes.
the audit to appropriations.
Yes,
If you have no
that's so
whatever
many
audit
times.
design, but there's no
That's the basic way of
legal framework for it. So when you ask us why are you giving budget to somebody that we have no
doesn't give
basis,
account.
we have no basis
They have
to,
no basis to do that.
you know,
Because there's
our
no-
process doesn't even require them to account for us, to us. So,
Okay, so what we'll do our best
Thank
this
you.
year.
So let's come to our. Thank you very much. At least that one will form major
Yes,
part of
for
our
3 months. Yes.
major part of our recommendation to the Senate. Now we did a letter to you. Sorry, please.
Yeah.
We did a letter to you on the 19th of September 2022. In that letter, we have specified to you the releases that were made to your office. From 2017 to 2021, I think from our correspondence to you, it's only 2019. In 2017, about 339 million, 935,000.
399.
Sorry, 399. Yeah, it was given to your office
Yes.
to meet the recurrent denomination for obligation. In 2018, they recurred 280 million. Then in 2020, 1,073,250,000 was given. And then in 2021, all of them recurrent. 2021 is 1.566 billion. And we have a total of 3.3 billion, 319,205,032 naira and 33 kobo. That is probably 3.319 billion. First, let us authenticate these figures. You confirming to us correct, or where it is not correct, then of course we now refer to the AIs that were raised from cash management, which of course was submitted to the Akabueze for the funds were released. So let us get your figures first. Your figures.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We confirm that in 2017, we received a total of 399,935,672.33 million naira from service-wide vote in two tranches, 200 million naira and then 199,935,672.33, and which amount was fully utilized. In 2018, we also confirmed that we received 280 million naira, single one, of which 950,055 naira 98 kobo was unutilized and returned to Treasury. 950,000, it's in the report we've submitted. 950,055 naira and 98 kobo. In 2019, we also confirmed that we did not receive any.
Yes.
In 2020, from our own records, we received 528,418,915 naira.
Sorry, come again. Sorry.
528 in 2020.
550,000.
50,000.
So 5 that to go.
Yeah, so there's a 544,831,085 that we would need to be availed the evidence that we received such. So perhaps something that I missed as the did. But of this 528 that we received in 2020, 34,247,492.63 was unutilized and returned to Treasury. In 2021, we received a total of 740,827,830, and not the one 1.566 billion that is reported. Out of this 740 million we received, 91,527,324.82 was unutilized and returned to Treasury. By our figure, the total for those years was 1949 182 417.33 as against the 319 205 032.33.
Ratio recurrent 2017 2017 oh my god 2017.
Maybe we can focus on the years where there's no 2019.
No, let us read with
Okay.
the AIE that is also counted together. Yes.
Okay. AIE number 5042. Purpose: National Budget Preparation and Administrative. 218 million. Those are sorry, I'm coming. 199 million 935,673 naira 33 kobo. The same 2017. Sorry. That 2017 manual mandate 172.33 kobo. The same manual mandate again, that 2017. Purpose: preparation and monitoring of 2017 budget. Making total for 2017 to do 399,935,672 0 National Budget Preparation and Administration 280 million. National Budget Preparation and Administration 280 million. That is all they received for 2018. AIE number 6. This capital was in 2018.
Yes.
This capital was in 2018. 5289. 5289.
Yes.
Preparation of 2019 budget. Preparation of 2019 budget.
Capital.
Capital
Yes.
180 million.
No. Capital.
State Office of the Federation for the training of budget officers. For the training of budget officers in MDAs on preparation of 2019 budget. Right? Honorable Minister of Finance approval.
Budget officers in MBAs.
Training of budget officers in MDAs.
Sorry. Capital. Is there anyone that is any figure that's in dispute? Why would that for 2 million?
Well, in 2019 said blank. So, but we do confirm that. So my previous that since it was blank, they didn't respond. They assumed that 2019 you had no issue, there were no questions. But in 2019 we did receive in 2 tranches a total of 112 and then 500, a total of 662,914,706. Okay, so they will provide the details of the utilization of that. We have submitted the details of the utilization of all the other amounts except the 42, and then this 2019-662 that we hadn't responded to because it wasn't cited in your letter.
Well, let me quickly say that the figures that we wrote to you were the things, were the figures that we got from the submissions made to us. And of course, we were not, there was no sacrosanct about those figures. We were still waiting. The only figure that we can actually accept, only the figures backed up by AIs, and they have to be read. So we were the ones that extracted the figures from the information we got from them. And we knew too that we're not exact. But that is why when the MBA comes, we read our figure, we open, then of course the confirmation that will be given by the accountants and release the funds based on the AIs that they received from cash management. So with the AIs, at least there will be no disputes unless maybe they were raised in error. So of course we can still confirm from cash management that raised them. So with these figures, at least we are now okay to say yes. These are the actual releases that were made in that recurrent and the capital. But what I'm looking at now, for us to not go into what is usual, because we didn't mention anything about 2019. I don't think you have made any submission to us about 2019. And then of course these other figures, particularly the ones that they were returned to treasury, some of the places where we got this point to return to treasury, we still need to capture those ones, properly. Then see now that it's need for us to postpone this so you can make your input for 2019 which we didn't get to you before. So you can consider all of them at the same time.
State that break down like a schedule for some of these expenses and transactions. What we have in here, it will make it easier. What we have in here are just payment vouchers. They are necessary, no doubt about it. But to make the job easier, we need schedule as per each release. As per each release. For 2017, for instance, we have 2 releases in two tranches. 200 and 199. The first one, there should be a breakdown. Will give us a schedule of that 200 million and how and the breakdown as well, how they are spent. Just attaching all the vouchers in one heap.
Quickly,
will not
we'll take you on Wednesday. We'll take you on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
So you can take notes.
No sitting tomorrow.